Old maps hide more than they reveal. Between faded ink and broken coastlines, there are gaps, vast blank spaces where the sea stretches endlessly. And within those spaces, whispers linger. Whispers of a land that once was, and then was lost. They called it Lemuria. Unlike Plato's Atlantis, smashed by the wrath of the gods, Lemuria was imagined as a colossal bridge of stone, a continent binding India to Madagascar and stretching into the Pacific. It was not born from myth, but from science. At least that is how the story began. In 1864, a zoologist studying lemurs found them in India, and again in Madagascar, but nowhere in between. The creatures were stranded across two worlds as if cut apart by an ocean. His conclusion was as strange as it was haunting. There must have been a land between them, swallowed whole by the sea. But Lemuria refused to remain a theory. It slipped beyond science into the hands of mystics, occultists, dreamers. To them, Lemuria was no longer soil and stone. It was a civilization of spirit, a cradle of knowledge that had fallen beneath the waves long before Atlantis was even named. A paradise that drowned, leaving only fragments. Myths, symbols, half-remembered stories carried across cultures. And here is the shadow that unsettles us most. Lemuria is not alone. Across India, Japan, Polynesia, and the Americas, the same memory surfaces again and again of lands that sank of worlds, devoured by the sea. It is as if humanity cannot shake the echo of some ancient loss too deep to forget. So the question lingers like a tide at midnight: was Lemuria ever real? Or is it simply another name for our greatest fear that everything we build, no matter how enduring, can vanish beneath the waves? The name Lemuria first appeared in 1864 in the writings of Philip Lutley Sclater, a British zoologist obsessed with the small, wide-eyed creatures called lemurs. He noticed something odd. Lemurs thrived in Madagascar, and they thrived in India, but nowhere in between. No fossils, no traces across Africa or the Middle East. It was as if the animals had leapt an ocean-defying logic. Sclater's explanation was simple yet haunting. There must have once been a land bridge, a vast continent, now swallowed by the sea. He called it Lemuria, after the lemurs, the little ghosts that clung to the mystery. In the decades that followed, Lemuria began to bleed from science into speculation. Cartographers sketched it across their maps, an enormous landmass stretching from Madagascar to southern India, dipping into the Indian Ocean, curling toward Indonesia. On some charts, it looked like a missing puzzle piece, the foundation of the world we had forgotten. But maps are never innocent. They do more than mark terrain. They shape belief. Soon, Lemuria ceased to be just a zoological theory. It became a canvas for human imagination. In the southern tip of India, Tamil legends told of Kumari Kandam, a vast kingdom that once lay beneath the waves. According to ancient poems, it was the cradle of Tamil civilization, where kings ruled for thousands of years, where poets composed verses that rivaled the gods. But then the sea rose. The land vanished. Survivors scattered, carrying fragments of memory, fragments of culture into new lands. To believers, Kumari Kandam and Lemuria were one and the same, the drowned motherland of humanity. Elsewhere, mystics embraced the idea with fervor. Theosophists like Helena Blavatsky in the late 19th century transformed Lemuria into something far stranger. To her, it was not merely a landmass, but the home of the third root race, an ancient people of immense size and spiritual power who lived in harmony with cosmic laws long before Atlantis fell. Lemurians were imagined as tall, luminous beings, half human, half divine, capable of telepathy of energy beyond modern comprehension. From there, Lemuria spiraled into legend. The psychic Edgar Cayce spoke of its downfall of great cataclysms that split the world, scattering its people across the globe. Survivors, he claimed, seeded the ancient civilizations of Egypt, Sumer, and the Andes. Every temple, every pyramid was a memory of Lemuria's lost greatness. But while mystics spun their tales, fragments of the story appeared elsewhere. In Polynesia, chants spoke of islands swallowed by storms. In the Pacific, sailors whispered of Mu, a lost empire that ruled the ocean before vanishing beneath it. To some, Mu and Lemuria were two names for the same forgotten cradle of mankind. And in the depths of the ocean, divers began to find ruins. Stone roads in the Bahamas, temples off the coast of India, monoliths in Japan's Yonaguni. Each discovery fueled the question, what if Lemuria was not myth at all, but memory? Still, the retelling always ends the same way, with silence. Whether in Tamil poetry, occult prophecy, or cartographers' ink, Lemuria slips back beneath the waves. No ruins are found that science accepts. No bones of a root race rest in museums. Just a ghost continent, half believed, half denied, suspended between geology and myth. And yet the story refuses to die. Like the lemur itself, those ghost-eyed creatures that gave Lemuria its name, the legend clings to us, haunting the edge of reason. Perhaps it is not proof that keeps Lemuria alive, but something deeper, a hunger for origins, for the idea that humanity is older, stranger, and more fragile than we dare admit. The idea of Lemuria does not stand alone. It is only one voice in a chorus, an echo of a memory repeated across oceans and centuries. When you look closely, almost every culture holds a story of a land that once stood proud and then sank beneath the waves. In southern India, the Tamil people preserve the legend of Kumari Kandam, a kingdom described in ancient poems of the Sangam tradition. They tell of three great Sangam ages lasting thousands of years, where poets, sages, and kings thrived in a land that stretched far into the Indian Ocean. But the ocean was merciless. Each Sangam ended with floods that erased cities, erased dynasties, until only fragments of poetry remained. To Tamil believers, Kumari Kandam is not just a myth. It is their Atlantis, their Lemuria, proof that their civilization began long before history admits. Travel east and the waters speak again. Off the coast of Japan, the Yonaguni monument rises from the seabed, a series of colossal stone steps, terraces, and walls. Some say it is natural formation, the work of geology, but to others it is the skeleton of a drowned city, a Japanese Atlantis swallowed by earthquakes. Whether natural or man-made, its shape recalls the same refrain: land, where land should not be memory, where memory should have ended. Farther into the Pacific, Polynesian myths tell of islands that sank beneath storms and waves. The people of Hawaii, Samoa, and Tahiti carry stories of ancestral homelands erased by the sea, forcing migrations across vast distances. These tales merge with another great legend, the story of Mu, a vast Pacific continent, described by 19th century writers. Like Lemuria, Mu was said to be the cradle of humanity, a paradise that fell into the abyss. To some, the two names Mu and Lemuria became interchangeable, two shadows cast by the same forgotten world. Crossing the ocean to the Americas, the stories continue. The Maya and Aztecs spoke of lands destroyed by floods of earlier creation, swept away before the present world was born. In Andean myths, the god Viracocha emerged from the waters of Lake Titicaca after a great deluge had erased a previous age. To the Inca, water was not simply an element, it was a destroyer, a force that could bury civilizations and force rebirth. Even in Europe, echoes of Lemuria's fate can be found.
Is that it?
The Basque people remember Atlantida, a sunken land connected to their ancestry. Irish legends speak of High Brazil, an island that appears and vanishes like a phantom in the mist. Greek myths recall Hellike, a city swallowed by the sea in a single night, leaving only silence where streets once stood. What is striking is not the detail, but the pattern. Again and again across India, Japan, Polynesia, the Americas, and Europe, humanity tells the same story: a land that fell, a people scattered, a memory that refused to drown. It is tempting to dismiss them all as coincidence. Floods happen, coastlines shift, myths exaggerate. Yet the persistence of the motif feels heavier, older, as if humanity itself carries a buried memory of some real catastrophe. Lemuria, Kumari, Kandam, Mu, Atlantis. They may not be separate stories at all. They may be different names for the same wound, the memory of a world we once belonged to and then lost. Science has always wrestled with Lemuria. In the 19th century, it seemed plausible, a sunken continent bridging Madagascar, India, and Southeast Asia. But the rise of modern geology shattered that illusion. The theory of plate tectonics explained that continents drift, collide, and reshape the planet, not vanish whole into the sea. For scientists, Lemuria was discarded, a relic of outdated thought. Yet the ocean holds its own secrets. In 2013, geologists uncovered traces of a lost microcontinent beneath the Indian Ocean, buried under volcanic rock near Mauritius. Tiny crystals of zircon, billions of years old, had no place on the young island. They were remnants of a vanished landmass, nicknamed Mauritia, torn apart by shifting plates long before humans walked the earth. It was not Lemuria, but it proved that continents can sink, fragment, and disappear beneath the waves. And Mauritia is not alone. Across the Pacific lies Zealandia, a vast submerged continent 94% underwater, with only New Zealand and New Caledonia peeking above the surface. For centuries, it was invisible, dismissed as myth, until surveys in the 21st century revealed its full extent. Again, science whispers back, sometimes myths echo reality in ways we don't expect. Meanwhile, archaeologists have uncovered ruins that blur the line between story and stone. Off the coast of India, near modern-day Dwarka, divers found the outlines of temples and walls lying beneath the water, some over 9,000 years old. In Egypt, the city of Heracleion slept under the Mediterranean for 200 years before being rediscovered. In 2000, its statues and sphinxes raised again from the seabed. In Japan's Yonaguni monument, colossal terraces lie beneath the current, sparking debate between geologists and believers. Is it a natural formation, or the ruins of a lost city? Each discovery chips away at certainty. No Lemuria, as Sclater described it, does not exist. But again and again we find that seas have swallowed cities, coasts, and even continents. Memory of floods preserved in myth may not be fantasy at all, but fragments of geological truth. And here lies the paradox: science rejects Lemuria, yet continues to reveal its shadows. Microcontinents like Mauritia prove land can vanish. Zealandia proves entire continents can hide beneath the waves. Underwater ruins prove human civilizations have been lost to rising seas. When you look closely, the boundary between archaeology and legend grows thin, blurred like ink bleeding across an old map. Perhaps Lemuria never existed as a single landmass, but as an idea, as a symbol of the Earth's power to erase its ghost, continues to resurface in crystals and ruins in the stories we cannot stop telling. If Lemuria cannot be found on any map, perhaps that is the point. Myths often survive not as coordinates, but as symbols, vessels carrying truths too vast, too fragile to be stored in stone. In this sense, Lemuria may never have been about a continent at all. It may have always been about us. In Tamil legends, Kumari Kandam is more than a drowned kingdom. It is the motherland of culture itself. Its submersion becomes a metaphor for memory lost, for golden ages swallowed by time. In this light, Lemuria is not only a land beneath the waves, but the womb of forgotten beginnings, an image of origins we can no longer touch. Theosophists transformed it further. To Helena Blavatsky, Lemuria was the cradle of the third root race, beings of immense spiritual capacity. Whether one takes her visions literally or not, the symbolism is unmistakable. Lemuria represents a stage of humanity we believe we have lost when humans lived closer to the cosmos, guided not by machines, but by spirit. Its drowning becomes a parable of decline, the fall from harmony into chaos, from memory into evolution. Even its name whispers symbolism. The word lemur was borrowed not only from the animal, but from the Latin lemurs, ghosts of the dead. Lemuria, then, is a continent of ghosts. Not just geological ghosts, but ancestral ones, the spirits of civilizations that once were, and may still linger in our myths, haunting us with what has been erased. Lemuria also mirrors Atlantis. If Atlantis symbolizes ambition, technology, and hubris punished by divine wrath, then Lemuria is its opposite, a symbol of intuition, spirituality, and memory drowned by nature's indifference. Together, they form a polarity, two halves of the same archetype. Atlantis warns of power misused. Lemuria mourns wisdom forgotten. The ocean itself is perhaps the greatest symbol here. It is the archive of the earth, holding both fossils and ruins, but also an image of the unconscious, the vast uncharted depth of human memory. Lemuria is not only a continent beneath the sea, it is the continent within the mind, the part of history that lies beneath awareness, waiting to resurface in dreams, in myths, in sudden déjà vu. This is why Lemuria persists. It is not anchored in proof, but in need. The need to believe that we came from somewhere more ancient, more mysterious than textbooks allow. To speak of Lemuria is to speak of loss of origins, of the thin veil between myth and memory, and perhaps that is why the story will never drown no matter how deep the sea. What then do we do with Lemuria if it is neither entirely myth nor entirely real? Perhaps the answer lies not in geology but in philosophy. Lemuria becomes less a place than a mirror, reflecting back our fears, our desires, and our unspoken recognition of how fragile we truly are. Every culture that tells of a drowned land is telling us something about ourselves, that civilizations are not eternal, that what seems solid can sink, that memory itself can fracture, leaving only fragments of poems, broken stones, or myths carried in whispers across oceans. Lemuria is the ghost of impermanence, the reminder that time erases not only kings and empires, but whole continents. It also invites a more unsettling thought. What if Lemuria is not about the past at all, but about the future? Perhaps we are drawn to the story because it echoes something we sense in our bones, that the world we have built with all its towers and machines might also one day vanish beneath rising seas. Just as Kumari Kandam slipped away, just as Atlantis fell, just as Helike was swallowed in a single night, perhaps we too live in a golden age balanced on the edge of a tide. Lemuria also forces us to ask what it means to lose knowledge. The Theosophists believed its people held wisdom of the spirit, a kind of higher harmony we have forgotten. Whether or not such a civilization ever existed, the symbolism is clear. Human beings have always feared that we are drifting further from our source, that in the pursuit of power we have abandoned something essential. Lemuria, in this light, is the memory of a wholeness we cannot name, the paradise we half remember in dreams. And yet there is hope in the idea too. If memory can drown, it can also resurface. Just as ruins rise again from the seabed, just as lost languages are deciphered, just as forgotten myths return in new forms, so too can wisdom be recovered. Lemuria whispers that nothing is ever truly lost. It waits in the depths patient, until we are ready to listen. Perhaps this is why the story has survived without proof, without maps, without ruins, because we need it. Because Lemuria is not about a continent beneath the waves, but about the part of ourselves we fear has gone missing. The drowned homeland inside us. The ancient mother we cannot forget. The mirror that tells us we are not as permanent as we believe, but maybe we are also not as lost. The waves close over it again. Lemuria slips back into silence, a continent without ruins, a homeland without coordinates, a memory without proof. And yet its shadow lingers, etched into maps, woven into poetry, whispered through myths half a world apart. Perhaps Lemuria was never meant to be found. Perhaps it exists only in the space between what we know and what we fear, the place where memory blurs into dream. But even so, it keeps calling. Each time a diver discovers an ancient ruin beneath the sea. Each time a myth speaks of a drowned kingdom. Each time the ocean swallows a coastline in our own age. It is easy to dismiss it as fantasy. Harder to explain why every culture remembers the same story. Harder still to ignore the feeling deep in our bones that we have lost something, and that the sea remembers. So we are left with the question that haunts all sunken worlds. What if the myths are not inventions but warnings? What if Lemuria is not the past but the future reflected back at us? And if one day the waves were to pull back and reveal the ruins of a continent we have long denied, what would we see in those stones? Proof of a forgotten civilization, or the reflection of our life?